Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of 2822 Sports Night, sponsored by Hyundai. I'm going to be running solo tonight as Nick is off and Elena is on her way back from Tawanda. And she'll have more on why she was out there probably at 11 o'clock. Got to get the sports teas in there somehow. But yeah, it'll just be me tonight, and it was a pretty quiet day in the sports world, to be honest with you. The Pirates made a move that we'll get into later. The Pirates signed one of their biggest free agents in a while on a multi-year contract, Padres first baseman, Ryan O'Hearn, to a 2-year, $29.5 million deal. Another big bat for them as they continue to be aggressive and try to please Paul Skeens in actually loading up around him and pleasing the Pirates fan base into, actually wanting to watch the team as the season goes along and playing meaningful baseball, something they haven't had a while there in Pittsburgh. But we'll get into that in just a second. But firstly, I guess the biggest news that just came out as of late, it's DK Metcalf, his suspension getting upheld by the NFL. He had a hearing this afternoon. Mike Tomlin brought that up in his press conference. He was asked about it in his press conference today on his classic Tomlin Tuesday presser. And let's just say he didn't really have anything. He didn't want to weigh in because he was waiting for the powers that may be to rule on it. And he also cited some possible legal litigation coming. I'm not sure if it's DK Metcalf's way from his side of things or the fan Ryan Kennedy's side of things. So Mike Tomlin's pretty hush-hush about that. But DK Metcalf will lose out, I think, on over $1 million remaining in each game this season, as well as missing the last two games and what is hopefully Pittsburgh clinches in these next 2 weeks, because if not, they're going to look at this game, and the suspension for DK Metcalf also makes some of his contract non-voidable. It clears up over $40 million in guarantees. So if Pittsburgh wanted to get rid of him and get off the hook, this suspension ironically makes things a little bit easier, and they won't have to pay as much going forward. If that is what happens. But firstly, I think we're going to get into this, play some of this press conference that Mike Tomlin held today, talking about that suspension, talking about the team's performance against Detroit, and looking a little bit ahead into their game against the Cleveland Browns. So we're going to get into that. Right now, I'm not going to play all of it, just going to play a decent portion of it. Then we'll probably go into break and we'll come back talking a little bit about the local sports world and a head coach going up to Albany in a coveted D1 job there. So we'll get into that. But firstly, it's going to be all about Tomlin Tuesday and getting this presser up here as we look at what Mike Tomlin had to say in this press conference about the performance Sunday, as well as looking forward into the head and possibly being without DK Metcalf. So here's Riley Holsinger. We'll get into that right now.
The Detroit Lions preview the AFC North battle with the Cleveland Browns and talk about DK Metcalf and his altercation with the fan. Here's Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin with more.
As always, I'll start with a brief synopsis, if you will, of the last performance. And there certainly was a lot of significant things that transpired in that game. And it's just good to win games like that. I just think there's individual and collective growth when you come through the other side of tough circumstances like that. And certainly there were a lot in the game. A lot's been written and said about the spectacular play, for example, by Kenny Gainwell that allowed us to go into the halftime tied 10-10. And certainly it was a spectacular play. But when I think about that possession, I think about those converted third downs. The first one by Pat Freiermuth, I think on 3rd down and 10. And then I think there were two more by Adam Thielen that were 3rd down and 10, 3rd down and 11 like conversions. And to be quite honest with you, if we don't make those conversions, you don't get to hear about the quality play that Kenny made, and certainly probably equally as important, we punt the ball away and they're probably coming back at us with an attempt or opportunity to extend the lead prior to the half. And so certainly the Kenny play was significant, but the whole sequence, those 3rd down and 10, 3rd down and 11 conversions that preceded it were equally as significant for a lot of reasons. And it's just good to to rise up in moments like that as a collective. And I just think it's important that we recognize it. That's why we came together yesterday, man, to really analyze this tape and void the victory Monday, if you will, because it was just so much growth and so many things to lay to bed and gain an understanding of and appreciate, because we got to do more of that as the road gets narrow, certainly. I thought situational football was big. We won a tight red zone sequence there early in the game. We certainly knew that Detroit is an aggressive group, particularly early in the game in that area in the search for 7 points. I thought that sequence of events where we stood up and won that sequence was big. I thought equally as important was the backed up offense that followed. We didn't produce a scoring drive, but we had an earned first down, and it's so significant to get earned first downs when you're backed up. It gives you room to operate. It minimizes the potential of a subsequent score if you punt the ball away. I think on that third down we hit Calvin Austin on our sideline, and that was big. By the same token, I thought we did a really good job in backed up defense. When we did turn the ball over with Darnell going in, our defense took the field and stymied their running game, and then on third down, we got a sack by Kyle Duggar that was significant. And so we played really good backed up offense. We played really good backed up defense in those examples, and certainly just a no blank component in our collective at the end of the game on the short field and just fighting down in and down out was significant. It certainly wasn't easy. We absorbed some penalties and so forth, but that's just a component of play. I just think largely, man, our guys cut their eyelids off, man, and didn't blink and stayed in the fight. And sometimes staying in the fight is probably the biggest asset in your hip pocket. And so that's what I mean when I say there's growth there. From an injury standpoint, we got a laundry list of things going on here. James Pierre worked out this morning. We'll see where that leads us. I'm sure he'll be limited, and we'll follow his progress throughout the week. No new update on TJ. I'm sure he's been in the building, but I'll gain further information about his potential participation at the early portions of the week and where that might lead. Siamalu, same thing, no update there. We had some Nick Herbig is looking optimistic in terms of game availability. He certainly will be limited in the early portions of the week. Some in-game things that happened. Brandon Echols with his groin. Don't know where that is. Certainly hopeful. We're certainly thin in the secondary, but that's life this time of year. We'll see where his participation might pick up as we push through the week, and thus his availability. Jalen Warren should be limited at the early portions of the week. Spencer Anderson likewise, but we're optimistic that both guys will be available to us. As always, we'll do what's appropriate in terms of working hard and smart in an effort to get these guys and others to the stadium ready mentally and certainly in the best physical shape that we can get them in an effort to do so. Now on to Cleveland. Been looking at these guys quite a bit and certainly working with an edge as I sit here today at the doorstep of winning the division, man. I just don't take this opportunity lightly. Divisions are won on the road in those hostile environments in those opposing cities. And certainly we've had our issues in recent years in Cleveland. And so with that understanding, we're preparing with an edge. We were in a similar circumstance a year ago at the doorstep in Baltimore and wasn't able to get it done. And so I'm excited to be here, but also urgent about where we are. Got a lot of respect for this group, and I'll start first with their defense. Quite frankly, they're the number one unit in the AFC North. They are. Statistically, they're better than any other unit in the North offensively or defensively. They got what appears to be a slam dunk defensive player of the year. They got what appears to be a slam dunk defensive rookie of the year in their front seven. Myles Garrett has certainly been an issue for us in that venue. I think he's had 5 sacks against us in our last 2 trips, neither of which we won. And so we understand the gravity of what we're going into and how they engineer victory and who's significant in doing so. He's at the doorstep of history, and so we certainly have respect for that. They got a quality, experienced coordinator in Jim Swartz who does a nice job dividing the labor up and really getting after people schematically. The environmental component of it, I'm sure, will be something to combat. It always is going to Cleveland, and so we got to put together a thoughtful plan. Certainly, we could potentially lack some significant people and so forth, but again, that's life. We better put together a thoughtful plan in terms of how we divide the labor up and put ourselves in position to engineer victory. Looking at their offense, they've changed a lot since the last time we played them. The last time we played them, Kevin Stefanski was the play caller. Now Tommy Reese is, and certainly the quarterback has changed. Shador is doing a really good job. He's growing and growing with each week from an outsider's perspective. And I think it's always cool when you're growing with company. Certainly see him gravitating towards some young players whose roles are expanding since the last time we played him. Can't say enough about Fanning and what he's doing. I think he's got 70 catches and over 700 yards as a rookie tight end. It's pretty special. Isaiah Bond's role has grown in recent weeks, and you see Shador really looking for him down the field, and he's provided some splash for him. Acquisition they got from the Jets, and Malachi Corley wasn't heavily involved the last time we played him. He appears to be increasingly so now. Reverses and so forth, man, really utilizing his skill set and providing some splash for him. Man, it's really unfortunate that their top young runner got hurt. I just got a lot of respect for that young man and how he plays, and certainly I never want to see anybody get hurt significantly that way. And so just sending well wishes to him, but also understanding that one man's misfortune is another person's opportunity. And so I'm sure they have some capable guys that have been working behind the scenes and readying themselves for their opportunity, and I certainly have respect for that and the potential of that. And the unknown component of that. We're no different, you know. Dylan Cook is getting a lot of attention for what he's providing us, but, you know, he's been working in the ranks for a long period of time, and I was never asking him to be patient, but simply to work while he waited. And it's paid off for him and us through his participation, and so that's through the lens that we see their running back position, and we certainly better be ready to minimize the run. It's kind of been a catalyst for us in recent weeks, our ability to improve our run game on offense and minimize opposing units' run game. And so I imagine this week will be no different. But there's a lot of things to discuss, man. These waters run deep in divisional play. I'm excited about it. I'm sure our team will be. We better put together a good plan. We better have a no-blink mentality. It's December. It's that time of year. We anticipate being challenged in a big way. That's life in this league. But that's what we love. The competitors that we are, we love that. And so with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Mike, I imagine you talked to DK Metcalf. Did he explain in your conversation what caused him to go over across the fin, and why did he go over?
He did explain to me why he did what he did, and I certainly don't condone the behavior, but I support DK, and I really don't have a lot to add other than what I just told you. I think he has a hearing this afternoon, an appeals hearing, and I certainly don't want to weigh in prior to that, and certainly I've heard more recently that there might be legal ramifications, and so I better be careful about what I say and how I say it. I'm sure you guys got a lot of questions. I understand that, but that's just the posture I'm in as I sit here today with so many components of this thing yet to be resolved.
I know it was an unusual situation, but does the team have any protocols to sort of prevent or to monitor, make sure players don't kind of go over there and have that sort of interaction? I know there's a lot going on in the sideline during the game.
Exactly.
So is that a yes or a no? Do you have protocols or not?
We certainly may, but I might not be privy to it because my eyes and attention is what's going on the field. But we have a top-notch security group, et cetera. Everybody in the National Football League does. It's not only from an organization's perspective, but it's a global component to it as well.
Mike, from a football perspective, what do you lose if DK is not available specifically this week?
One man's misfortune is another man's opportunity. A guy like Roman Wilson, for example, who has been working extremely hard and growing throughout the course of this thing, but had his role reduced in recent weeks, man. I'm excited what this opportunity might mean for him to display growth in the midst of the time where he hadn't been participating, to show his professionalism and his readiness and how he's been sharpening his sword for battle in the ranks while he hadn't been playing, for example. And so I just think that's always the lens in which I see it, whether it's discipline in nature or injury related. You can waste a lot of time pining for those that you don't have. As a leader, I think it's my job to work and prepare those that I do have and position them to live out their dreams and be positive contributors to a winning effort.
When you say you support DK, what, if anything, does the organization do to aid him in his appeals process? Again,
I'm behind the scenes in that. I'm sure he's gained some assistance from us from a front office perspective, but I've just been putting together a plan to play in Cleveland this week.
Mike, two questions. What was your reaction when you saw that video?
I'll keep that to myself.
Does the organization or you prepare players for volatile rhetoric thrown their way, and have you heard it in the past? How have you reacted to it?
You know, I just think volatile rhetoric is a component of our business today, unfortunately. It just is. But not only our business, college, youth sport parents. It's just, I think it's just a component of sport that's developed in a big way in recent years, and it's unfortunate. But really, I have nothing to say about the matter other than that.
Mike, when you say legal ramifications, do you mean from DK's side or the fan side, or can you expand on that?
No, I can't.
Mike, DK has a history with this fan. It was reported he's reported this fan to security before. Is there more the NFL should or could do to protect players in that situation? Again,
I respect your questions and the fact that you guys have questions, but it's just so many components of this situation that are yet to be resolved. Me speaking on it and speaking on it in detail and particularly expressing my opinion regarding things doesn't help the circumstance in any way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 2822 Sports Night, sponsored by Hyundai. As always, I'm your host, Ricky Turner, and yeah, we're here. We're here just hanging out tonight. It's me, as I said. Elena is coming on her way back from Towanda, so she'll have something for the 11 on why she was down there. As a Towanda wrestling coach, I think Bill Sexton set the PIAA record for most wins in a career. So she went down there, got the highlights of that match. Luckily, they ended up winning, or I guess she would have had it taken the angle of, well, he's still tied, but he will break the record in the coming future. But they ended up winning, ended up getting the dub, and now he cemented himself in PIAA wrestling history. So it's always good to hear, and always great to see a local coach getting recognition in our area. But in other news in our area, let's just say a coach from around here got a new job. As Tom Perkovich, the Susquehanna University head coach, will be making his way up to Division I and coaching the University of Albany Great Danes. The director, Mark Benson, officially announced the hiring of Perkovich, a guy with over 2 decades of experience, and he now becomes the third full-time head coach in University of Albany's history. Perkovich will be leaving Susquehanna University with an impressive 84 record over 10 seasons. And as we know, the Susquehanna University, the Riverhawks, they've made some runs. They've won 4 consecutive conference championships, an NCAA Division III championship appearances from 2022 to 2025. And over that span, Susquehanna has been 27-0 in league play between those 3-4 seasons. So congrats to him, and it was I'm sure a tough decision to leave Susquehanna, where he's been for over a decade. He's had the success that he's had, and we've had the privilege of covering that team for a while. And again, they've made some deep runs in the Division III college football playoffs and any level. They've had a lot of success. They've been one of the best college teams in our area. And if an 84-25 record and not losing a league game, that's easier said than done. And I'm sure, again, it was a tough decision for him to have to go out and leave the university that he is probably so beloved at. But again, his postseason record is defined by the ability to win on the big stage. They defeated Hobart College in the second round, and the team secured a victory over St. John's in 2024 during a 2024 campaign where the Riverhawks sort of captured their first playoff victory in over 30 years. So it was a great win by them. But that 2024 season where they beat St. John's on a game-winning field goal as time expired, and another win over Bethel University, and his squad made just the semifinals in just the second time in program history. And I'm sure he's going to do a great job in Albany. But this past year in 2025, Susquehanna was 11-3 overall record. I believe they started off 1-2 though. They were very shaky to start off, but again, the offense was just stout, 39 points a game. Defensively, they held teams to under 18 points a game in a very competitive landmark conference. But Perkovich and Susquehanna, they marched through the first 3 rounds of that Division III championship with victories over Washington and Jefferson College, Christian Newport University, and Eastern University to reach the national quarterfinals, but could not get past there, as I believe they lost to Thomas Jefferson University, who they lost to earlier in the season as well. But they had 5 AP All-Americans on that squad, and before his tenure at Susquehanna, he spent nearly a decade at Muhlenberg in eastern Pennsylvania and started as the strength and conditioning coach before climbing to the team's offensive coordinator. And he was a part of a staff that went 39-11 at the time he was there as an offensive coordinator, with the offense breaking multiple school records. But again, this guy is a very storied coach in Susquehanna University, and I'm sure it's going to be hard to see him go. But he's laid an impact for those, I'm sure, that played for him at Susquehanna. But now they're going to begin a search of their own, trying to find a new head coach as they look to continue that success and continue that dominant league play that they have been so known for in recent memory. And Albany's getting a hell of a coach. I know our Central PA guy, Joe Garrison, will probably dearly miss him, talking to him after games, but it's a new era in Susquehanna, and with a program like that and the success that they'd have, you have to imagine that they do hire in-house because of the fact that they've been so successful. This isn't a program in disarray. No, they've went 27-0 in league play over the past, 4 years. So why not just bring in another guy who's had the success, knows what they do well in-house, and keep the train moving forward. But we'll see what happens there. But getting back to, I guess, Mike Tomlin's little press conference there, he talked a lot about, I just stopped the press conference because the main purpose I wanted to get to was he was asked a lot about DK Metcalf, and I'm sure you realized that throughout the majority of that, I think 16 minutes of you listening to Mike Tomlin. He was asked, the burning question in the room really wasn't so much about Myles Garrett and the Browns going on the road and winning that game. He was asked a lot about his star receiver, who had some, sideline concerns coming into this game. There was he's a passionate guy. Mike Tomlin, again, I don't think, praise him enough as an individual. Said he's a hard worker. He's a great teammate. But he's had flare-ups on the sidelines. But he hasn't gone to social media, hasn't done anything like that. Him and Arthur Smith had, I guess, their differences. I think it was around the Bills or Chargers game about his usage and how they could better involve him going forward. And they sat down. Arthur Smith liked that. He gave him props, saying we sat down like adults and we sort of figured it. There wasn't no going behind each other's back, posting on social media or anything like that. We got in a room, we sat down, we figured out more ways to get him involved in the offense, more ways to get this offense moving as a whole. And yeah, they got moving forward. And so that was really, really good to see. Productive conversation. But unfortunately, he's going to miss the next 2 games. And that's the fact of the matter. Mike Tomlin was asked about that earlier in the press conference. What do? This guy is basically your only field stretcher. And, this is a team that gets a lot of people involved in the pass game, as evidenced by they're one away from tying the team record with 11 TDs to 11 different players passing the ball. And that's a big reason why they've been so successful. They don't focus in on one receiver because let's be honest, they really don't have anyone outside of DK Metcalf. Now, DK Metcalf has had games this year where he's went bonkers. Week 1 against the Jets, a couple weeks ago against Baltimore. That first matchup, even against Cleveland, he had 4 receptions, 95 yards. But things get a lot harder now without him because you don't have this big, bulky body that could catch balls across the middle, get going, and make big plays after the catch, because that's what DK Metcalf does. You're going to have to find ways to get more people involved. And the first name Mike Tomlin brought up, ironically, was the guy who's sort of lost his roster spot since Adam Thielen and Marcus Valdes-Scantling have come aboard. And that's Roman Wilson. He said he's excited for him. He said he could certainly make more of an impact with DK Metcalf out and see what this opportunity brings for him. And Roman Wilson has had some plays this season. He had a big play down the field against Green Bay. He had a touchdown late in that game as well. I think that was statistically his best game of the year. He's had some TDs in garbage time as well. But this is a team that it's going to be interesting to see what they do, because you want to win this game against Cleveland. You don't want to have to play a Baltimore team that, Baltimore's anything could happen against Baltimore. And Pittsburgh hasn't won in Cleveland since 2021 either. So, you could argue anything could happen there. And Myles Garrett has been a big part of why Pittsburgh has struggled in Cleveland, because their last 2 games in Cleveland, Myles Garrett has had 5 sacks and will get an opportunity to play against a 4th-string left tackle in Dylan Cook. Now, Dylan Cook has had a good last 2 games, but Mike Tomlin, I think, was asked later in the press conference, well, you're going to give Dylan Cook help? Well, yeah, obviously. He said he just got done watching the 49ers tape later in that press conference, and he said they were giving Trent Williams help. So, yeah, probably we will give him help. But he said sometimes the bomb detonates, though. And sometimes the bomb detonates even when you give it help. And that's certainly true, because Myles Garrett will find a way to disrupt this offense. I think he had a strip sack the last time they played him in Cleveland, and he is just a disruptor. He's a game wrecker, Mike Tomlin. And he's on the way to a Defensive Player of the Year award. They've got a runaway Defensive Rookie of the Year award that only has a half a sack, but you look at it, he's like top 30 in interior defensive linemen for pressures as well. I think he has like 31 pressures. So Mason Graham is going to be a disruptor there on the interior as well. But this is a whole different team Pittsburgh's looking at with Cleveland. You look at Shedeur Sanders going out there. They have Tommy Reese calling the plays. This is a whole different offense. Dylan Gabriel was much more of a check down QB. He wasn't a guy who was going to push the ball down the field. With Shedeur, they've been much more open, much more receptive, and much more willing to push the ball down the field to Isaiah Bond, to Jerry Jeudy. Harold Fannon's going to be a big part of this offense. Mike Tomlin gave him props as well. He's a big, angry runner after the catch, very comparable to what they have, did have in David Njoku. But the one guy that Cleveland won't have is Quinshon Judkins, because unfortunately he suffered a leg injury. He's done, I believe, for the next 4 or 5 months. He will be ready. He should be ready for week 1 of next year, but he's going to have to go through a grueling recovery process for him to get surgery, get everything healed up. But he is done for the year, and that was really the focal point of Cleveland's offense. This team wants to run the football. They want to pound the ball with Quinshon Judkins, and unfortunately, they won't be able to do that this time. He's out. I believe Jerome Ford is out as well. It's going to be a lot of Dylan Sampson, who is a weapon himself, a rookie running back out of Tennessee. They drafted 2 running backs in this class, 2 guys with, I guess, different skill sets. Judkins is much more powerful, short yardage. He will have he does have the explosion to make some big plays in the run game, but Sampson, much more agile, much more, he's a bigger guy in the receiving game, and it's going to be interesting to see how they use him. And this is a Pittsburgh front, if you remember this past week, that just dominated Detroit's offensive line, particularly their interior offensive line, and did not allow Jahmyr Gibbs nor David Montgomery to really get anything going in this ball game. So it's really going to be interesting to see what happens there, and how Cleveland plans to attack this Pittsburgh defense. Mike Tomlin also touched on Malachi Corley, a guy they got from the guy I believe the Jets cut, and they brought him in. Malachi Corley, young wide receiver. It was an early round guy, had a lot of promise, I believe, coming out of Louisville. Let me double check that, but he's a guy that they love his speed. They like using him on end arounds. It's a lot of end arounds, a lot of double end arounds, and they try and get him the ball. But yeah, Malachi Corley is a guy that you need to watch out for. He's a guy who will put the ball in space, and he's a guy who's going to be dangerous. And he's a guy who will take the ball on end around, has great speed, and will make some impact plays in the run game if Pittsburgh is not careful and over pursues down the line of scrimmage. But Pittsburgh, it sounds like Mike Tomlin is pretty optimistic, at least for getting one of their playmakers back in Nick Herbig. So that was a really good sign for them. They're also possibly maybe looking at getting TJ Watt back. We'll see what happens there. Sorry, Malachi Corley is from Western Kentucky. That is my bad. God dang, though. West Kentucky Hilltoppers got me there. But, yeah, we'll see what happens there with TJ Watt. He seemed pretty optimistic, I guess, that TJ Watt would speak at some point this week. As for his practice, Pittsburgh has been pretty tight-lipped. Mike Tomlin said he's just not sure from a medical standpoint where he is at in his recovery, but I think he did say it was reasonable to say that he is fully recovered from the procedure he had, and could be just getting him back into game shape, but we'll see what happens there as well. So Isaac Seumalo said I think would be limited early, or didn't know where he was at with his triceps injury. James Pierre, I think he said he was progressing pretty well from his calf injury. They're hoping to get him back. Jalen Warren and Spencer Anderson would both be limited early in the week with injuries, but did not expect those injuries to affect their game status for Sunday. And Mike Tomlin also said, Mike Tomlin did not realize that the Bengals, or the Ravens and the Packers played on Saturday night. So he said he wasn't aware of that until this morning, and then was asked, does this if the Ravens lose, does this affect your going about thinking of how it could affect player status for the game Sunday? And it said yes. He didn't realize that, and then he was asked, I think, later in the press conference if next week, if Pittsburgh, if they get the division locked up, this week, if they would have any status for their players going forward next week, and possibly resting players, maybe getting Will Howard, Mason Rudolph some reps in that offense. And Mike Tomlin said, if I didn't have an answer about this Sunday, I'm definitely not going to have an answer about next Sunday. So Mike Tomlin, as always, a very entertaining press conference guy, uses a lot of narratives. I think one of the most prominent ones he used in this one is one guy's misfortune is another guy's opportunity, and that will certainly be true in the wide receiver room this week. And he talked a little bit about Jack Sawyer and his play this week as well. In that regard, this from Detroit's game with TJ Watt missing time. So we'll see what happens going forward for that Pittsburgh team. There's a lot of week left, so practice starts on Wednesday. We'll see who's out there. Mike Tomlin didn't give him that Victory Monday day off because he said he wanted to ride this momentum and drive home the point about still looking to improve. Although it's a Victory Monday, he wanted to make sure his guys are ready to go for the stretch run of the season. But that will do it for this segment of 28-22 Sports Night. We'll be back talking some baseball next segment. The Pirates making some flashy moves. And the Mets moving on from feisty infielder and dead red hitter Jeff McNeil as he moves on to the Athletics. So we'll see what happens. I'll give you my thoughts on those moves going forward. I'm sure Nick is pretty distraught with his baseball team right now. But yeah, we'll be back right after the break, and we'll be talking some baseball, talking some free agency coming up next. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 2822 Sports Night, sponsored by Hyundai. And let's talk some baseball. We're in the midst of the 2026 free agency. And what I've noticed about baseball free agency, it's a lot more slow developing than, say, NFL or NBA free agency. It's a lot more spread out. It's a lot more calm, it looks like. Well, one team that has been a little bit more active than usual has been the Pittsburgh Pirates. They signed Ryan O'Hearn to a 2-year, $29 million deal. And it is the first multiple-year free agent deal that the Pirates have put together since 2016, as they're looking to boost one of the worst offenses in the MLB and what was probably one of the better pitching groups in one of the MLB last year. But O'Hearn had a big year in 2025. His first All-Star selection, had a career high with a 281 average, 17 homers, left-handed bat, and doesn't have massive power, but he's more of an on-base threat. And that's what the Pirates need. The Pirates need someone to move the people along, but O'Hearn certainly displayed some of that power that he does have. The last season, he hit 278, 358 and 474 against them in 109 plate appearances. But the deal is the latest in a very busy season for the offseason for the Pirates. You remember last week they traded for Brandon Lowe, outfielder Jake Mangum, who has a lot of defensive upside and an improving bat, and then Mason Montgomery last week as part of a 3-team trade where the Pirates had to give up Mike Burrows, a low-end starter who gave them some reliability, has some good stuff, some off-speed stuff, but doesn't certainly have that powerful fastball or some heat that you would like in today's pitchers. And Pittsburgh also traded for the Red Sox outfield prospect. The password, I can't pronounce his name for the life of me. The password Garcia, let's just call him, with 18 home run. He was a top 100 prospect. I think he's prospect number 85 right now. And they also signed reliever Gregory Soto, who's had a mixed bag as of late. He's a guy who's made an all-star team, but he struggled last year with the Mets. Not being a reliable part of that. Has great stuff, but did not have a great season. Needs to work on his command. Has a really high walk rate. So when he's on, his stuff really good, but when he's off, it could be a concern. But the Pirates did need another left-handed arm in this bullpen. But Pittsburgh has been looking to sort of support its lineup of its pitching staff really going forward, looking at Paul Skeens, Bubba Chandler. Looks like Mitch Keller is going to remain on the roster. Jared Jones will be returning. They have Braxton Ashcraft in the bullpen. He was a starter and got some bullpen work last season as well. This is a Pittsburgh team that really had some really good pitching, but it's just a lack of offense. And Paul Skeens really went to the front office and say, hey, we got to do something, man. I mean, I want to win a championship here. I want to be competitive. I want to play some competitive baseball. And we got to do something. And sure enough, the Pirates have gone out. I hope they're not done. This is, again, another good move by them, signing Ryan O'Hearn, but going to need to probably figure out what to do now. At third base, I know Nick Gonzalez is going to be in the running there. I can't, because Brandon Lowe is probably going to be playing second base. You have to imagine either Spencer Horwitz and Ryan O'Hearn are going to be battling it out there on the first base side for them. Brian Reynolds is in left field. Looks like Brian Reynolds is in right field. O'Neal Cruz is in center field. And they're going to have to figure out what they want to do there at that left field position, which primarily went to Tommy Pham, but obviously that was their big move last year. They're going to need someone to be a regular left fielder on that side as well. So going to be interesting to see what the Pirates plan to do there. But so far, you got to like their moves, but still work to do. And you have Joey Bart at the catcher's position. O'Hearn will probably be coming off the DH, and he'll probably be flip-flopping with Spencer Horwitz, who had a really good offensive season last year as well at first base. So third base, left field, they're probably going to, and in some outfield depth, they're probably going to be the biggest concern for the Pittsburgh Pirates to cap off this offseason. But the Pirates coming off, again, a 71-91 season in which the offense was dead last or near dead last in almost every single major category, including runs and home runs. Hearn at 64 RBIs while playing for the Orioles and Padres last season. And he provides, again, a little bit of versatility, playing both first base and a corner outfield spot, so he could play there if need be. But O'Hearn could see time there, and he also, again, you have O'Neal Cruz and Brian Reynolds in the outfield as well. But in 8 seasons, in the MLB, O'Hearn is a career 252 hitter. Those numbers have spiked over the last 3 years. He's batting .277 with 46 home runs, 182 RBI since the 2023 season, and now finds himself playing half his games at a ballpark where the 21-foot-high Roberto Clemente wall stands at just 320 feet from home plate. So Ryan O'Hearn could really, really do some damage if he wants to hit down that right field line and give the Pirates some much needed power there. So I'm excited to see this. I think the Pirates have certainly done their fans a service this season. They're finally making some moves, which you really have to be happy about if you're a Pirates fan. And going forward, it's going to be interesting to see what this team does now to wrap up their offseason and really put to rest. They for now, they put to rest some of the rumors that they didn't want to go out and spend, which props to Ben Sherrington. This should be a regular thing. I'm not saying you have to go out and spend $200 million on a big time free hit, but guys like this with Ryan O'Hearn and Brendan Lowe trading for him and signing some high upside or trading for some high upside prospects with the password, I think really go forward. And it's going to be interesting to see what this Pittsburgh Pirates team does now going forward and seeing the future of this team. And it's going to be real interesting to see. They also, again, remember they have Connor Griffin down in the minors. He's going to be up for trying to battle for a roster spot. Jared Triolo had a nice season to end last year as well. So maybe he continues and he continues to rake and continues to be a reliable bat at the shortstop position. But I imagine that Connor Griffin, at the rate he's going, is going to be up sometime this year. But on the other side of things, you look a little northeast and you look at the New York Mets, who have now traded away Jeff McNeil. And McNeil, the Mets are really overhauling their roster. Mets are going to receive minor leaguer Yordan Rodriguez in the trade, and they're also sending just under $6 million to the Athletics to cover McNeil's $15.75 million salary for the 2026 season. But New York, they also agreed to pay McNeil's $2 million buyout if the A's didn't exercise his club option for 2027. McNeil's 34 right now, so again, an older guy, but great fastball hitter. That's something I will always remember Jeff McNeil for doing so. And he was drafted by the Mets in the 12th round in 2013 and didn't make his major league debut until his age 26 season in 2018. And burst onto the scene from there. And ever since then, he's become a valuable contributor to those Mets teams that made an NLCS run a few years ago. He won a 2022 batting title, making 2 All-Star teams in his 8th season in New York. And he sort of slashed 243 with 12 home runs and a 111 OPS in 122 games last year, while logging innings at 5 different positions, including DH, And he was really all over for the New York Mets. As the New York Mets, if I'm Juan Soto, I'm like, what in God's name did I get myself into? But it's been a real struggle now for the Mets. But the Mets really determined to improve their defense after the disastrous 2025 campaign. Decided the left-handing McNeil was not really a part of the puzzle. He had his defensive struggles, and they acquire Marcus Semien to play second base and signing Jorge Polanco to play first base this season. In a flurry of moves, they let go of Polar Bear. They lose Diaz to the Dodgers, and Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor sitting there like, what do we do now? Brett Beatty is the likely candidate to start at third base. Mark Vientos, Ronnie Mauricio, and Luis Angel Acuna, all right now on very cheap deals, round out the infield for the depth chart in the New York Mets. And McNeil sort of became expendable in a winter that's seen, as I said, Diaz, Alonso, and Brandon Nimmo as well go. But McNeil was projected to play left field after Nimmo was traded to the Texas Rangers for Semien. Now the Mets could give that job to Carson Bange or acquire a veteran to replace Nimmo. On free agent, Cody Bellinger is still out there if they're really desperate to go play there. But McNeil, he's going to figure to play second base as the A's look to really build upon a good year or a solid year last year. Nick Kurtz, their AL Rookie of the Year. They have Shea Langeliers, Tyler Strotsman, Brent Rooker, Jacob Wilson, Lawrence Butler. They have a flurry of young, talented players there with the Athletics, and they're signing veteran Jeff McNeil to sort of round that out. But we'll see what happens. But Rodriguez, who is part of this trade for the Mets side, he was signed out of Cuba for $400,000 in January. He pitched in 8 games, including 1 start in the the Dominican Summer League. In his first professional experience, he posted a 2.93 ERA with 20 strikeouts to 8 walks. Not the ratio you want to see, but I'm assuming the Mets see some upside with him, and we'll see if he can get and translate into their minor league system. But that will do it for this segment of 2022 Sports Night, and we'll be back after the break. We'll be wrapping this episode up, talking a little bit about we'll talk a little bit about everything in this last segment as we look to culminate this episode and wrap this, put a nice bow on top of this in a really nice way. But we'll be right back, so stay tuned. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this last segment of 28-22 Sports Night. I forgot the NFL Pro Bowls came out today. Looking at the roster, 4 teams, 19 first-timers made the Pro Bowl. 4 teams had 6 players make the Pro Bowl, including the Baltimore Ravens. Good for them. Baltimore, despite not having the best season, but they're still churning out Pro Bowlers. The Denver Broncos, Nick's Denver Broncos, churning out some Pro Bowlers as well. The San Francisco 49ers as well, and the Seattle Seahawks. 4 teams churning out 6 Pro Bowlers. The Eagles, along with Dallas, Detroit, and the Chargers, are sending 5 Pro Bowlers. The QBs right now, that's always the big question. For the AFC right now, it's Josh Allen, Drake May, and Justin Herbert. And for the NFC, Sam Darnold, Dak Prescott, and Matthew Stafford. Travis Kelce, he's going back to the Pro Bowl, tied with Jason Witten for his 11th Pro Bowl, or second most among tight ends. Tony Gonzalez leads the way with 14. Based on the way Travis has been talking, I don't see him getting to 14 Pro Bowls because he's probably not going to play long enough. But yeah, on the Pittsburgh Steelers side of things, I think they had 3 players make the Pro Bowl. You look at them there. I believe it was T.J. Watt, who's again. I question some of these Pro Bowl nominees. T.J. Watt's having a down year and has been injured with a collapsed lung, but he made it. Jalen Ramsey made it as a free safety, if I'm not mistaken. And where's my guy? Ben Skoranek. Ben Skoranek as a special teamer. Danny Smith's got to be loving that one. Ben Skoranek's playing with one arm, and he's still churning them out. But, yeah, you look at the AFC, the QBs, as I mentioned, Allen, Herbert, and May. Running backs, Jonathan Taylor, Devon Achane, James Cook there. Fullback, Patrick Ricard. Shout out to him, representing the big people. Wide receivers, Jamar Chase, Nico Collins. Zay Flowers is a surprising one. And Cortland Sutton. Brock Bowers and Travis Kelce representing the tight ends. Tackles, Bowles, Dawkins, and Alt. Alt's a little bit hurt, so I don't know if he'll be participating. The guards, Quinn Miners, Quentin Nelson, Quinn Miners, and Trey Smith. And at centers, Creed Humphrey, and Tyler. I thought Zach Frazier should have made it. I thought he was a snub. Defensively, at defensive end, Will Anderson, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby. D tackles, Chris Jones, Jeffrey Simmons, and Zach Allen there for Denver. Nick's got to like that. Outside linebackers, another Bronco, Nick Bonito, TJ Watt, and Tuli Pelotu. That's a tongue twister right there. Inside linebackers, Roquan Smith and Azeez Al-Shaair from the Texans. Cornerbacks, Stingley, Surtain, Gonzalez, Ward. Strong safeties, Kyle Hamilton, Derlin James. Long snapper, Ross Matishchik. Jordan Stout is the Ravens punter. Cameron Dicker is the Chargers kicker. And Shamari DK is the return specialist on the AFC side. On the NFC side, you got to look at it, and we'll see. I actually don't know here. We're going to have to get through this list. But, yeah, I thought Zach Frazier was a big Pro Bowl snub for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I wasn't happy about that. I'm a big Zach Frazier fan, if you cannot tell. But you look at the NFC, as I said, Stafford, Darnold, Prescott. Running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson. No Saquon Barkley this year. Wide receivers, Puka and Nakua, Jackson Smith and Jigba, George Pickens, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Star-studded trio, or Quattro there. Trey McBride, George Kittle at tight ends. Tackles, Penei Sewell, Tristan Wirfs, Trent Williams. The guards, Tyler Smith, Joe Thuney, Chris Lindstrom. The centers, Drew Dalman and Cam Jurgens. There's the first Eagle, I believe. I think that's the first Eagle. Defensively, Hutch, Parsons, and DeMarcus Lawrence from Seattle. Wow. Jalen Carter at defensive tackle for the Eagles. Leonard Williams. Jordan Davis, you could argue, should have made it as well. Jordan Davis is having a heck of a year there for the Philadelphia Eagles too. Quinnen Williams for Dallas. Outside linebackers, Brian Burns, Jared Verse, and both outside linebackers for the Rams. Inside, Jack Campbell and Zach Bond. There's your third Eagle. Cornerback, you got J.C. Horn, Devon Witherspoon, Cooper DeJean, and Quinion Mitchell. As the Eagles' secondary's been elite all year. No surprise there with two Eagles making it. Free safety, Kevin Byard and Antoine Winfield. Strong safety, Buda Baker. The long snapper, John Weeks from the 49ers. Tress Way from the Commanders. Aubrey's their place kicker. Rashid Shaheed had a heck of a year staying in the NFC for the Seattle Seahawks. And Luke Gifford for the San Francisco 49ers as their special teamer. So a star-studded cast there, but still pressed about Zach Frazier. Maybe we'll get into some snubs next episode, but that will do it for this episode of Steelers 28-22 Sports Night, sponsored by Hyundai. That will do it for today's episode, and Christmas Eve coming up. So hopefully we'll have Elena Lucido back tomorrow, as I'm not sure if there's really any sporting events going on tomorrow, but I guess we'll find out. We'll be back tomorrow. As always, have a great night, and have a great holiday if you're not watching tomorrow.